Hello everybody. In this video we're going to quickly review some of the tools, techniques, and concepts that we've been going over the last couple weeks. I'm going to start off with this red cone here, and I'm going to key it. I'll scrub to frame 24, move it up, let's say 12 units, and key it. So then, if we play our animation here, it will move in 1 second 12 units up on the y-axis, this green axis here. As you can see, we've got our default slow out and our slow in, meaning that it starts out more slowly. As this line gets steeper, the cone moves faster, and then when it comes to its key here, it eases in or slows in. Now we can contrast that by selecting the animation curve and then clicking on the linear button here. And now it will move at a very constant speed throughout the whole animation. There'll be no slow out, there'll be no slow in. If I wish to reintroduce that slow out, slow in, I'm going to click on this button here to flatten out those tangents, and now we have the default slow in, slow out again. Now, we don't always want the default slow in, slow out, nor do we always want the motion to be linear. So we can change that by selecting, in this case, I'm going to select my first key here, and I'm going to click on this button here to break the tangent. That'll allow me to grab this handle and move it up like this. This curve means that there'll be no slow out. It'll come out very quickly, and then there'll be some extreme slow in as it comes to its frame 24 key. If we wish to do the exact opposite, we can go ahead and select that key, flatten it out again, select this key, and break its tangent, and drag its handle down. So now we'll have extreme slow out at the beginning of the animation. It'll get faster and faster and faster. There'll be no slow in. It'll just come to an abrupt stop. Once again, I'm going to flatten out all my tangents so that I have the default slow in, slow out. What if I want to have extreme slow out and extreme slow in with this current animation curve? Well, one way I could accomplish that is by going to frame 12 and keying it, and then grabbing this key here in the middle, grab its handle, and we can adjust it this way to make it steeper in the middle of the animation, less steep at the beginning and the end. And that'll give us a little bit, it'll give us more extreme slow in, slow out. And let's go ahead and play that and check it out. And that's exactly what we've got. There is, in fact, another way that we can accomplish that. I'm going to delete this key here. This is a more advanced method. So if you prefer the methods I just showed a few moments ago, that's totally fine. But for this example, I'm going to select my animation curve, right-click on it, and I'm going to change it to a weighted tangent. You'll notice that the handles have changed slightly. They look a little different. Just so you know, another way that you could do what I just did is just go to curves, and you can make it into a weighted tangent here as well, or we could return it to be a non-weighted tangent, the default type of tangent, by clicking on non-weighted tangent. I am going to go ahead and switch it back to weighted tangent, however, so that we can take a look at that. The advantage to the weighted tangents is that I don't need to create that middle key in between these two keyframes to get that extreme slow in and slow out. I can simply grab the handle and then holding down Shift on my keyboard to lock it on the horizontal axis, I can pull the handle out. I can grab this handle, pull it out as well. And you'll notice that this is going to be a very punchy animation. We're going to have some very extreme slow out, some very extreme slow in where it moves very, very little. But it's going to move very quickly in the middle of this animation. So let's go ahead and play it and check it out, and boom, there it goes. You can see it. These weighted tangents are quite easy and fun to work with. Let's go ahead and pull this handle in like this. That'll eliminate all the slow out here. But we'll still have that extreme slow in at the end of our animation, and we can check out that animation now. And you can see it comes out very quickly, but then slows down. Very pronounced slow down, very pronounced slow in. If we want to do the exact opposite, we'll go ahead and just once again flatten out that tangent here. We'll come in here, pull this handle in, grab this handle, pull it out. We'll get some extreme slow out at the beginning. In other words, it'll come out very, very slowly. It'll get faster and faster and faster and then come to an abrupt stop. Let's test it out and see if that's what happens. And sure enough, that's exactly what we get. So what we're really talking about here is spacing, which we've discussed when discussing the 12 principles of animation. And to see exactly what we mean by spacing, I'm going to go to my animation menu sets here, visualize, and I'm going to ghost my cone here and scrub through the animation. And you'll notice here where we have the, let me get rid of this key because actually it's not doing anything here. You'll notice that these drawings, we can call them drawings, are very close to one another when it's going very, very slowly at the beginning of the animation. But as it gets faster and faster, the drawings become further and further apart, meaning that over each frame, it's moving faster. This is a really good representation here of this concept in animation of spacing, what the object is doing between the keyframes, how it's getting, in this case, from point A to point B. I'm going to go to Visualize and Unghost All. Because the next thing I'd like to do a little review on is timing. Perhaps should have talked about timing before spacing with this video, but that's okay. I'm going to come back over to my animation curve and I'm going to flatten out those tangents. We'll keep kind of the default slow out and slow in here for this particular example, because now we're going to talk about timing. And I do find that a lot of beginning students in animation, it takes them a little while to get this concept of timing, even though it is actually quite simple. It really just refers to how long it takes for something to get from one point or one position or one rotation to another rotation. In this case, we have our cone, and it is taking 1 second to move. When you do your animations, you should be evaluating whether things either look too fast or too slow. If it looks like it's going too fast, it means then that you need more time. If it looks like it's going too slow, then you need to make it happen over less time. Very simple. So let's use this as an example. We have our cone, and it is taking 1 full second to move 12 units. In this case, Maya does use centimeters, so it's taking 1 second to move 12 centimeters. If we determine that this is taking too long, that it is too slow, one way that we could play around with this is to try to just have the time. So if it's taking 24 frames, we can adjust it by selecting the key here in our timeline. I just shift clicked it and then middle mouse drag it. Instead of 24 frames, we'll drag it over to frame 12. And now when I play this, it's going to happen twice as fast. Now, if I determine that that is still too slow, we can go ahead and make it even faster. So maybe instead of taking 12 frames, we'll have it take 6 frames. Again, I can move my keyframe here, or I can grab it in my graph editor as well and simply move it over in time to frame 6. Or I could also just manually type in that value in this field right here so that this key is on frame 6. And now if I play it, it's going to be very fast. And again, if you determine, though, that your animation is going too fast, then it simply means you need to have it take more time, in which case we just need to move its keys to the right then, so that it takes more time. Currently, this is on frame 6. Let's just say that we've decided, in fact, that half a second is how long we wanted it to take. I'll simply move this keyframe over to frame 12, and we'll play that. So that's a very simple way that you can work with the timing. Now, some more review from what we looked at in previous weeks is what is called the dope sheet. It's very similar to the graph editor, except that we can't see the animation curves themselves. We can't really adjust whether it has slow in, slow out, or all that kind of stuff that we were just looking at earlier. But even though it's not quite as powerful, sometimes just the simplicity of the dope sheet can be a real advantage. I'm going to switch over to the dope sheet now. This is my dope sheet here. The way to read this is that this is time, and these are my animation keys. And if I select this animation key, you'll notice that it is actually on frame 0. If I select this animation key, you'll notice that it is on frame 12. Let's say that I've determined that, in fact, I do want it to go a little bit faster. What I'll do is just select that animation key that's currently on frame 12, and let's say I decide I want to bring it to frame 9. So I'm going to middle mouse drag it over to frame 9. Or I could also, once again, just manually put that keyframe here in that field, and it will move this key to frame 9. And then we can play it and check out its timing. Let's take a look at a very quick and easy exercise that you can do to better get a sense of timing in Maya. What I'm going to do is delete all my animation by selecting the keys here in my channel box and then right-clicking and saying Cut Selected. That'll get rid of all the animation. This object is no longer animated. And what I'm going to do is go to the beginning of my timeline here on frame 1. 1 is typically the beginning of your animation, and I'll go ahead and key it. And then I'm going to go to frame 48, and we'll move it up 12 units and key it. So if we play this, this takes a full 2 seconds. A full 2 seconds. 2 seconds can feel like a very long time when animating. Let's go ahead and return it back to its original position, but this time it'll only take 1 second. So we'll go ahead and go to, let's see, 72, frame 72, and we'll just return it back to that original position and key it. So now we can compare 2 seconds to 1 second. Now that we've done 1 second, let's go ahead and try half a second. So we'll bring it to frame 84, move it up 12 units, and key it. So now it's going to take 2 seconds, and then 1 second, and then half a second. And now we can compare those speeds. We'll go ahead and have that again. So this time it'll only take a quarter of a second. In other words, it will take 6 frames. So we'll go to frame 90 and return it back to its origin. And while we're at it, let's go ahead and do a couple more. We'll take only 3 seconds this time. And we'll go ahead and play that. So it's going to take 2 seconds, 1 second, half a second, a quarter of a second, and then an eighth of a second. Let's go ahead and play it and see what it looks like. So that's just a very quick representation or quick little exercise to really get the handle of timing in Maya. Now, we've been primarily looking at Translate, and in particular Translate Y, but of course we could animate on all of these different channels, not just translation, but rotation and scale as well. Visibility works a little bit different, but we could also be animating visibility as well. We'll take a quick look at rotation. Once again, I'm going to delete my animation. I'll just select all the channels here in my channel box and cut selected. And this time we will go ahead and do rotation on this, and we'll have it take 2 seconds, and it's going to rotate a full 360 degrees. And we'll go ahead and key that. So if we play our animation, here's what we have. But once again, we can use our dope sheet if we want, and we can change the timing of it simply by grabbing these keys and moving them over. If we want it faster, we move the keys over to the left. If we want it to take longer, then we move it over to the right. Let's go ahead and make it take 1 second. So now it is a 1 second spinning animation. Let's go ahead and go back to our graph editor. Here is our animation curve, and just like those translates, we've got our default slow out and slow in. If I were to set my timeline to just 24 frames and play this, you'll really notice how it looks like it's pausing. Why? Because it has a slow out and a slow in. If we take this curve and make it entirely linear and then play it, it will now just seem to continuously rotate at a very constant speed, because that is exactly what it's doing. Now I'm going to take my timeline and add another second to it. We'll play this animation. It goes at a constant speed. It stops. Let's go ahead and reintroduce that slow in, slow out by flattening those tangents. And we'll take a look at some of the same techniques we looked at earlier with the translate, but this time uh, with the rotation. So I'm going to go ahead and select that first key there. I'll break the tangent and move it like this. This will, as you can visually probably recognize, it's going to get rid of the slow out. It's going to come out very quickly in the beginning of the animation, and then it'll gradually ease in or slow in at the end of the animation. If we play that, you'll see that that's what happens. It spins very quickly in the beginning, and then it comes to this nice, gentle stop. We can try to do the exact opposite by flattening that tangent, breaking this tangent here at the end, and this time we'll have some extreme slow out without any slow in. It'll stop very abruptly. It'll start out very slowly, speed up, and then come to an abrupt stop at the end. And just like the other examples, if we wanted to, we could convert this curve as well to a weighted tangent, and then we can really fine-tune the slow in, slow out. In this case, I'm going to really have some extreme slow out, some real extreme slow in. In the middle of the animation, it'll move very, very quickly. This will have a lot of punch to it. Let's check it out. So these are really just a few really quick and easy exercises that you can do to make sure that you get a good handle of timing, spacing, and working with animation curves in Maya. I hope that this has been useful for you, and thank you for watching.